Hey everybody. Today I want to talk about free will and determinism, but I want to talk about it from a different way than it's normally talked about. Uh, you know, as a philosophy. I want to apply it directly into your own life and see if it can galvanize you into further and deeper seeing in your own path in your own life. So we always wonder about our choices. What's the right choice? Um, should I do this? Should I do that? Is my life determined, predetermined? Do I have free will? But I'd like for you to look at it this way. The people that are living life, almost everyone, with their beliefs about politics, religion, their families, themselves, that loop that people live their lives in, there's not, for the general mass, I would say there's not a lot of questioning. There might be some wondering, like, why is this happening to me? And did I deserve this? Or why did they do this to me? Why is God against me? That was one of mine. But what I discovered along this path is that just like in the show Westworld, where the robots that are in the park, before they were aware to question, they lived out their loop, doing the same things they were designed to do in the park day in and day out. They were living and dying every day, and they were being repurposed, put back out there to live their loop again. But when one of them started to become aware, then they started wondering and got curious, and it lit a fire under the character to figure out what was going on. And that is sort of what the path can do as well. But most people want beliefs. They want belief systems, and they want to be told what to do. Uh, and that's the game, right? That's sort of what this is. You get birthed into this space. You don't know what's going on, and then your parents or whoever starts telling you what life is, and it conditioned you in various ways with thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions about what this reality is. And you kind of don't question that. And as you get older, you start living out your life. Most people, you know, say most people get married and have kids and, you know, get a career and they do all that good stuff. And, some people don't, obviously, but that's kind of a general majority. Um, and in a way, that stuff is all determined. It is determinism. It isn't free will, right? Because just like the robots in Westworld, when you are in your loop, you don't know you're in your loop. You are conditioned by thoughts and beliefs and culture and all kinds of stuff that you grew up in, circumstances, people, media, all of that. But like Jed McKenna says, when the little bastard within starts to nag at you, and I don't know what creates that. I don't know why some people, have that desire to look, are just set apart. Like I did the video on the black sheep and how I was a black sheep, and people who watch this channel probably were black sheep and are black sheep. Um, but it's a very interesting thing is that for whatever reason that you start to question these things and you get an awareness about it, and you have the just nagging within that there must be something more. Even the people who can question that can still rely on their thoughts and beliefs and conditioning and still question things but not go deep enough. And very little can change that way. That's what I would call determinism. So becoming aware that something needs to change or that something is going on here mysterious and doesn't quite make sense. And there's something here that doesn't make sense. Just like in Westworld, you start to question that loop and things can get destabilized. That's the awakening path. But of course, you don't go anywhere. So there is no real path. Not in the sense of a journey. The journey is all in the mind. But if you don't take that journey and you don't question your conditioning, and especially if it's not even there to be aware of that questioning, then your life is determined. You absolutely will live out your loop and conditioning. As you probably know, very few people change. Once they get to a certain age, and that age is usually maybe even in their 20s, they're fixed. They're conditioned and fixed, and they live out their loops. And some of their loops are conditioned in a good way, like they have good parents and a good life, and they were brought up with good beliefs and positive, optimistic beliefs, and they live out their lives in the game, and that's okay. That's good. That's part of what this is, right? But then the people who don't get a very good card hand to start out with, they are more likely to question. But the crux of it is, even the ones who question, if they don't go deep enough, they will also be determined to stay in their loop. And there's determinism there. So then what is free will? This is a little bit of inverse thinking and looking. So free will is, in this part of what I'm talking about, is having that awareness wherever it came from to look, whatever that it was that started you, to break down the conditioning that was given to you by your parents and by society and culture, whatever, and to really question it. And the more you're able to question that, the more you start breaking apart conclusions about reality, beliefs, and even deeper beliefs we call assumptions. And you start destabilizing your algorithm. For those that don't know, I call the ego the algorithm. Because to me, it is a constantly evolving, constantly refreshing system of thoughts, emotions, sensations, all that good stuff. And you rebuild your identity, and multiple identities are being rebuilt constantly on a daily basis. And it's all impermanent and it never stops moving. But if you keep the conditioning around and you don't question it and look at it with clear seeing, then that thing keeps refreshing the same way over and over again. And then you live out your whole life that way. So this path is questioning my beliefs and my thoughts. And the biggest one, that there's a separate self here. So the more you get unconditioned, in a way, the freer your life is. It's not necessarily free in the sense that you get everything you want as the character. But when you really start questioning and breaking down your conditioning, there's a lot more freedom. And energy gets freed up, and acceptance happens. Acceptance of where you're at. And that's where things can change. When you have clear seeing, and you get even clearer and more clear about that, you'll start to really, those conclusions will start to fall away. Beliefs will start to fall away. And even if new beliefs are formed, they will be much more free, much more relaxed, not needing to be right, much less grasping. And then the ultimate ungrasping can be seeing that there was never a separate self apart from life. So looking through reality's eyes in that way will change the algorithm It's not so much, it's not a doing, it's not a forceful changing. This is the crux of a lot of what I say. It's not a forceful changing. Well, what it is when you are out of that conditioning and you're really pulling it apart and you're seeing the thoughts and the beliefs that have made you become negative or a victim or a people pleaser or whatever flavor your conditioned algorithm is showing up as in various identities. Pulling those apart from presence, from reality's eyes, seeing the suffering that it's causing you and perhaps others because of the conditioning you've had changes the algorithm all by itself. Seeing very clearly the suffering changes it. There's nothing that the character needs to do except see, and the character's not really the one seeing anyway. So it's very sneaky, but it's very powerful. Taking attention away from the conditioning and bringing it back to here, this is where the responsibility comes in. This is what the call is for awakening. It is a call from consciousness itself, or whatever you want to call it, to look. And if you are blessed for whatever reason with that awareness to see, don't fucking waste it. Do you know the gratitude I have, even though my life was super hard for the first 30 so years, for still having that awareness to see, even during the really hard times when it was, my algorithm was just beating me to death and I was, I had wrong information, wrong pointing or no pointing about what this is, and I was just flailing, But eventually I got a foothold and I started getting good pointings from a couple different teachers and started really looking at the conditions of my life and the way it was set up and the way it was continuing to show up. And I had to take responsibility for that. And so do you. And it's sort of like reality taking responsibility for the character instead of the character taking responsibility for itself. So, with the perspective of most people live out their loops and never change for good or bad in the way that it's termed in the relative. They don't change. They are determined. Their life is determinism because they don't know. But if you're on this channel, you know. You have an awareness, something inside of you is kicked off and wants you to look. So you have a great responsibility here. It is a great power, but it's not a power for the character. But it is a great responsibility. And if you don't draw a line in the sand and really look at your conditioning and you live out your loop in that conditioning, that's very painful. To be aware and to still do it is painful. That's how powerful the conditioning is, though. The conditioned loop is powerful. And it needs to be seen for what it is. And that means taking responsibility. It means not blaming anyone else. If you blame your parents for your past, if you blame your current spiritual teacher or whoever it is for not being clear enough, then you're not taking the responsibility that it needs to be to look at raw reality and the algorithm. There is no blame for that. How can you be blamed for conditioning you didn't ask for? But, as I always say, reality's undefeated. And it's not going to give you kudos because you know that. What it does give you is the power of attention, the power of clear seeing, but you have to wield it. You have to use it. So you have to see how the thoughts are making things be the way they are. You have to see what beliefs are holding you back. You have to take responsibility for that. And without fail, I've seen it many times when someone takes true responsibility for that and really starts looking. looking at their processes, looking at why they seek. You have to break that down. Part of the path is deconstructing the path itself. Matter of fact, it's the main part. It's the part that really gets things cooking. You could go to a million teachers, hear new things, read a book, watch another video, and you can say, "Oh, this last teacher, he wasn't giving me what I wanted." Da 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 da. And maybe he wasn't, but the mere view of, I'm going to look at the next book, the next teacher, the next video, and believe that it's going to give me the answer, that's not taking responsibility. Taking responsibility is looking at your own algorithm in process as it's happening, seeing those beliefs take hold of you in the moment as best you can, or if you can't do that at first, really sitting down and looking at them and the reactivity, whether you do it through the fetters or Zen or some other way. All of that stuff at the main point, the main crux is responsibility of seeing. And clear seeing, once you start doing it and really get a hold of it and really understand what it means, is extremely powerful and can change your algorithm very quickly. Sometimes, obviously, it takes a while. That conditioning was not born in a day, and it will not probably go away in a day. But I've had beliefs that I've looked at and seen very clearly, and it literally feel the energetic fall away and never come back again. So I know it can happen because it's all ultimately an empty, not a solid notion. It's solid by our belief and attention we give to it. The intention we give to those thoughts that become beliefs are what make them powerful. But it's not the beliefs or the thoughts that's powerful. It is our attention and our permission to take that attention, to take it back. You'll be pretty free at that point. As reality, you'll live from this presence, and seeing the things that were conditioned in the past will open up new pathways. And you'll, whichever way the ride takes you, because you'll be one with it, you'll be good with it.